Hi Fishing World, I'm Georgopoulos, the host of the AMFisH fishing vlog series. This video is just going over the components of a bait caster reel. This is a high profile bait casting reel. I'll show you the difference with a low profile if I don't get too many things tangled up here. That's a low profile bait casting reel. As you can see, it's closer to the rod, and that's a high profile. So it's almost got my rods tangled there. This one just kind of looks like a can, so it is a lot higher off the actual reel, or sorry, rod. But the components of a bait caster, a lot of people struggle with these, which is why I'm shooting a series of videos pertaining to bait casters. I had a hard time when I was younger as well, and then I kind of started to piece everything together. So this is your spool release, so you press that to cast. Switch it this way so I don't gaff myself in the head with a hook. This star piece that everyone calls a star is your drag, so if I pull it back, it loosens my drag. If I've got a really good fish on, I want to keep tension on it, I push that forward. Now the critical one, obviously this is your handle and your grips. This high profile one doesn't have a low braking system. I think one of my other ones, let me just grab it real quick. Some of them have a built-in braking system that actually helps you backlash. Grab my other one without getting it entangled. This one actually has, get that lizard out of the way, this one has a little wheel with numbers around it, and that just allows me to increase how much braking assistance I want from the reel. So 1 would be very little, 9 or 10 would be a lot of braking. It's just kind of, it's almost, the only way to describe that is almost like ABS brakes on a car. When you have it 8, 9, 10, it's giving you a little bit of that tap inside, just to kind of help you not backlash. But the key component that a lot of people may not know too much about is the spool tension knob. It's right here on the smaller one. Looks exactly the same. Just get this handle out of the way, but it's right in there, right underneath the handle. And that is a critical piece to a bait casting reel. And why that is if this isn't set right, I'm going to see if I can tighten this up a bit, almost all the way. There's my bait. Hopefully I'm getting this on camera. There's my bait, so I've turned that spool tension knob all the way, and I'm shaking the rod. That bait's not dropping. The second I turn this, and I'll do it here, if I start turning this backwards, dealing with a very overcast day, so hopefully I can get this. I'm turning that tension knob backwards, and now there goes the bait. So what you want to be able to do is, you don't want your bait rifling down. I'm going to turn it all the way back and loosen it completely up. That's a little too fast. Every bait, and depending on how heavy it is, will fall differently. So let me just do that again. I'm going to turn that reel tension knob forward, so everything forward is completely as far as it'll go, and I can shake this heavy bait. I can't cast like this because it's almost pretty much locked the line. If I pull, I can pull, but there's no way that weight of that bait is going to make it be able to cast. So let me just reel this up a little bit, and I'm going to loosen it to the point where that bait starts to fall. And it's going to start to go in a second here. There we go. So a little too much. I'm just going to do that again. I've got my button engaged, so my spool button completely engaged to cast. And I'm going to turn this tension knob backwards to loosen it, and there goes the bait. So you kind of want to be able to structure this in a way where it's falling about that speed. Try and get that again. Falling about that speed. Once you're able to adjust that, you can fish various baits. Here's a spinner bait, smaller, less heavy bait, but again, I'm going to turn that knob all the way forward. It's barely falling, barely moving. I'm gonna see if I can drop this right down here in front of me. I'm gonna turn that reel tension, and there it goes. So when you turn it backwards, you're actually allowing it a little looser. When you've got it turned all the way forward, you're not going to be able to cast. So that's what secures your bait at the top. But try that with various weighted baits at home, maybe a really light bait. Baitcasters in general are not good for using very light baits. But that reel tension, spool tension knob is very, very critical. If you've got that set too tight, every time you cast, you may actually snap your braid or snap your mono just because it's not being able to spool off the spool properly. If you have it way too loose, you may be able to hoof that bait way out there, and all of a sudden now you've got no control and the line's spooling off so much faster. So you kind of want to set it for every bait. I usually just tweak it. If I've got that heavy, bring this back here in front of the camera. If I have this heavier deep diving crankbait on this musky setup that I have here, and I've set my spool tension knob according to that weight, and then I decide to put a spinnerbait on this actual rod, I'm going to have to probably loosen that up a little bit more because the spinnerbait obviously is not going to weigh as much as the crankbait itself. But go over those mechanics of the actual bait casting reel. They're fantastic reels. I keep telling everyone. I avoided them for a few years when I was younger. In my early teens, I was getting frustrated bait casting everywhere and having bird nest and overrun and overspool and all backlash, all that stuff happening. But once you are able to adjust and tweak that little knob there to accommodate the weight of the bait, and you practice it, you'll kind of know from memory and say, oh, you know what, I'm using a spinnerbait now, I've got to tighten that up, or I'm using a really heavy crankbait, so I'm going to have to, you know, tighten that up even more than I would with a spinnerbait. But those are the mechanics of a bait casting reel. They're fantastic, great for power casting, power fishing. So don't avoid them. Just go over the actual reel that you have, and that there is the critical button that you're going to want to focus on. If you learn how to use that button there and that little knob, you'll be fine. So thanks for tuning in. See you next time.